Have you seen these Smartcakes all over Instagram lately? They've been around for a little while, and I was really excited to get my hands on some, try them out, and ultimately try to make a Copycat Smartcakes recipe. If you are new here, my name is Lindsay, and I like to share things like a low-carb, ketogenic lifestyle. Sometimes I lean carnivore, and I also really like to share recipes and just sort of some odds and ends here and there. But today, I really wanted to talk about these Smartcakes and the recipe that I have come up with. If you have seen these and checked out their website for the Smart Baking Company, you will know that these are a little bit pricey. On the Smart Baking Company website, you can buy 2 of these sized boxes as a pack, which is the gourmet box. That is almost 15 bucks, which makes each individual cupcake $1.88. That's kind of expensive given the fact that every single one of these cupcakes are only 30 grams, 1 ounce, very small, very lightweight cupcakes. And you also have to wait for them to ship. That's kind of a bummer. But the upside to these is that they taste amazing. They have 0 net carbs, and they are only 38 calories per individual cake. So with those positives in mind, it makes sense as to why a lot of keto people have jumped on the bandwagon with these Smart Baking Company products. We have tried 4 flavors. They came out with an orange cream flavor for summertime that we have not tried their version of yet, but we have tried the lemon, the chocolate, cinnamon, and raspberry, and I wanted to try to recreate the raspberry so much. So that is what I have attempted to do. I want to show you what I did to make these cupcakes.
All right, to start with, I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of some extra light olive oil. I really like the extra light style of olive oil whenever I'm baking because it doesn't seem to have as strong of a flavor. Then I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of water and 1 room temperature egg. I like to use room temperature eggs whenever I'm baking. It just seems to give them some better loft to the baked items. Next, I'm going to add in some sweetener. Today I'm just going to use straight erythritol, and I'm going to use a little bit of stevia. So I used 1/4 cup of granulated erythritol and 1/32 of a teaspoon of the stevia powder. Mix those together. And then I'm going to add in 1/4 and 1 tablespoon of oat fiber. So that's 5 tablespoons if you wanted to use only 1 measuring device. And then about 3 tablespoons of my homemade baking blend. And because I'm only making 4 cupcakes this time around, I'm using half a teaspoon of the baking powder, aluminum free. As I'm mixing this together, I realize that it's just a little bit too dry, so I go and add 4 more tablespoons of water. So we've added in a total of a half cup of water. Now I'm going to divide out my batter because I'd like to make some raspberry cupcakes as well as some orange flavored cupcakes, and I don't want to skimp on one versus the other. I'm sure I could have left half the batter in this mixing bowl that I started with, but I wanted to make sure that I had equal amounts without having to go through and use my scale. Now I'm using half a teaspoon of raspberry extract and about 4 drops of almond extract for the raspberry flavor. And then I'm adding in some optional food color just so that I can tell the difference between raspberry and orange. With that almond extract, be really careful. It is extremely overpowering whenever you get too much. Now for my orange flavor, I'm adding about half a teaspoon of orange extract and about probably 6 to 8 drops of vanilla and some orange food color. I like to use silicone baking cups for this recipe because it seems to bake more evenly from the outside to the inside of each cake. And I used a little bit of olive oil spray to keep them from sticking to the liners. And I really wanted to make sure not to cross-contaminate the flavors and get some weird combos going, because I just wanted true orange and true raspberry flavored cupcakes. I like to pour a little bit of water into the empty cupcake wells just to make sure there's lots of moisture in the oven. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm going to let these bake for 20 minutes. Now that they're done, I let them cool, and I sprinkle a tiny bit of erythritol on top of each cupcake.
So here are my cupcakes. These are a lot larger than the Smartcakes version. The Smartcakes version have 30 grams per cupcake. Mine are about 65 grams per cupcake, and my nutritional information is a little bit different compared to the Smartcakes as far as like macros and calorie count. I did go ahead and calculate it out, and for one of my 65 gram cupcakes, it's approximately 59 calories, about 1.5 grams of fat, a little less than 1.5 grams of fat, about 1/3 of a gram of carbs per cupcake for net carbs, and about a little over 2.5 grams of protein per cupcake. So it's definitely a lower calorie, lower fat, lower carb type of a cupcake. It's not super high in protein. This is literally meant to be like a snack or a treat, not an everyday thing, not something you build a meal around. And that is something that I really appreciate about this. If you were to go through and calculate out calorie per gram, I am definitely winning on that front. They have a little bit higher protein. The Smartcakes have 4 grams of protein, so they've definitely beat me out there. And they have 0 net carbs because they have 5 grams of fiber and 4 grams of sugar alcohols in form of erythritol. So those 9 grams together cancel out their total carbohydrates. So I do have a little bit of net carbohydrates in my cupcake recipe. And what else? They only have 2.5 grams of fat. The thing I dislike is that I was not able to fully recreate the texture of these Smartcakes. Whenever you bite into the Smartcakes, they're very light and airy. They kind of have a little bit of a granular sugary kind of texture to the top, which is very appealing in my opinion. And whenever you first bite into it and you get it against the roof of your mouth, it kind of like hangs out there. It's almost like it sticks to the roof of your mouth. Not to the extent that like peanut butter would stick to the roof of your mouth, but it definitely does kind of cling to the roof of your mouth. And they're very lightweight and almost very spongy, like lightweight sponge. Mine are definitely more dense, which makes sense since they are more than double the weight of the Smartcakes. But mine have more of a cake-like texture. And the number one difference between their cakes and mine is the fact that I used a baking blend that has almond flour, coconut flour, the whey protein. I've got a video showing you how I make my baking blend, and they used a proprietary fiber blend. Sorry, I keep setting it down and picking it up, sorry. Their proprietary fiber blend has oat fiber, corn fiber, and flax. I don't have corn fiber in my house, and it wasn't an ingredient that I felt like was worthwhile enough to go and outsource from Amazon or from any of these like various baking companies you can buy ingredients from. So I decided to just stick with what I had in my pantry, and I think that was really where the density sort of shifts from a Smartcake versus my homemade cupcakes. So I want to taste some of these guys. All right, so here are my cupcakes. These have been refrigerated for a little while. Okay, so here's a raspberry. So the texture on mine is definitely more dense than a Smartcake. I would pull out a raspberry Smartcake, but we have eaten all of them. That is good. So sprinkling a little bit of that erythritol on top of the cupcake whenever it comes out of the oven really does kind of remind me of the texture of the Smartcakes. That's good. I need to try the orange flavor now. Here's the orange. That's pretty tasty. That is really tasty. I really love the lighter, fruitier flavors in the summertime. And I was obsessed with the raspberry flavor for the longest time because like that just, the flavor profile just sounded so good to me. But when they came out with that orange cream flavor, I was like, oh, that flavor combo sounds fantastic. I definitely want to try that. I think the orange might be my favorite. It really might. I could have baked them a hair longer, probably like 2 more minutes, and they would have been like primo. Like I said, we have tried all 4 flavors that we have been able to get our hands on of the Smartcakes, and the chocolate one was definitely not our favorite. It kind of had more of a spice flavor to it. The lemon was fine. The raspberry was really good, and our favorite was hands down the cinnamon flavor. It reminded us of cinnamon rolls. That was the first thing that came out of Jared's mouth. He said, that tastes just like a cinnamon roll. I can so see eating that for breakfast. That is my recipe for a copycat version of the Smartcakes. They're not exact. The texture is a little bit different, but given the fact that I don't have the exact ingredients that they list on their ingredients, I'm really pleased with how these turned out. So I'm gonna go finish half of these and let the girls have the other half, and I will see you in my next video.